Okay, so a question I get a lot is when do you buy pilots? Which ones do you buy? When do you buy them, right? Because a lot of them cost coins. Well, unless you're buying rare ones, a lot of them cost coins, and they can be kind of expensive. I kind of avoid answering this question generally because there's no one answer that applies to everybody. There's not even one answer that applies to most people, I would say. Everybody's going to want to do it slightly differently, I think. And so just kind of figuring out what you're looking for is a large part of it. But here is the way that I would personally do it. First and foremost, you start with like the rare pilots, right? So you got the rare pilots when you first start the game. Just get like 2, maybe 3 rare pilots and stick with that. You probably don't need any more than that when you first start. You can upgrade them, whatever. So you want to buy them as soon as you can. You'll start with red. Assault pilot, that's pretty decent. You can use it on Viper later, which is what I'm doing. Another good pilot to get is a missile pilot. So generally my priorities in terms of pilots, this goes for any rarity, rare, epic, legendary, doesn't matter. Close quarters and missile apply to everybody. Barrage applies mostly to earlier and mid-game players because they use pod guns a lot, because pod gun is super strong. Also like nade launcher, cryo launcher, they're all very like barrage weapons are all extremely good in the early mid-game stages, and so barrage is a good pilot class to go for. But close quarters and missile have always been useful and will probably continue to always be useful because radius weapons in general are kind of broken with the double damage, like the double back damage mechanic that the game has. And close quarters weapons just by default are always going to have the highest DPS. So there's always been at least one meta weapon that was a close quarters and a missile, and that will probably continue to be the case for pretty much forever. So I would prioritize those 2 classes specifically, and I would avoid artillery as well as beams probably. But then yeah, after you get like 2 or 3 rare pilots, just stick with that, and then don't worry about filling up your entire hangar with rare pilots, I would say. You could probably go for a couple epics after that. So generally, what's going on is your pilots are essentially fighting for resources with your mechs. Your mechs cost some amount of coins to get, it costs some amount of coins to get new mechs, it costs some amount of coins to get pilots. So at this stage of the game right here, right, tier 2, let's just say as an example, it would be extremely more cost effective to spend 400 coins on a new mech that is stronger both in rarity and in rank, meaning that it's significantly better. We can take a look at just a rank 2 Juggernaut, HP about 25,000, with shield durability of about 5,000. And it also has, 8 energy, right? So when you go up to tier 3 and you have access to Ares, it starts at rank 3. We'll assume it costs coins. It doesn't cost coins. This is just the best comparison that I have. So rank 3, you get 50%. You get 4 more energy capacity, which is 50% damage bonus from that. And your HP is also 46,000 with a 12,000 shield durability. Like 45-ish thousand with a 12,000 shield durability. So it's about twice as much total HP and about 50% more damage output in the form of energy capacity. So you can tell just in general by going from tier 2 to tier 3 mechs, you could buy a legendary pilot and max it out and it still wouldn't be as good as just buying a rare mech at this stage of the game, right? So then, at this point, it's more cost-effective, significantly more cost-effective to buy rare mechs, and you continue to buy rare mechs until you get to epic mechs. So then what do you do? So your epic mechs are 3,000, close to 4,000 coins each. Again, you could choose to get a legendary pilot, but getting an epic mech is going to be significantly more cost-effective. Let's take the tanks as an example. Rank 3 Ares, 45 or 46,000 HP. Rank 4 Aegis, 94,000 HP, so doubled the HP just right off the bat. We're not going to count the ability because that's like ridiculous. So not only do you get better abilities when you go up a mech class, right, but it's the fact that you're getting a mech that is 1 grade higher, which is typically about 1 rank in terms of strength. So in order to make, let's say, in order to make a rare mech perform about as good as an epic mech, I have to get mine to rank 5. So for every grade difference, I have to also make that a rank difference. Rare is 1 grade below epic, so I have to make it 1 rank higher than my epic mech in order to make sure that it performs about as well as my rank 4 epic mechs. And that's not like, 100% set in stone. It's just a general pattern, right? But you see what I'm getting at. So you got about double the HP from just moving up to epic mechs, but then you also get 16 energy as opposed to 12, which is another 30% damage bonus. So you could get a legendary pilot, but it's still more cost effective to just get epic mechs. And so you'll continue to get epic mechs up until tier 6, and maybe at some point in tier 6 you could decide to get a legendary pilot, though I personally would wait until after you're in tier 7 and you have one of these, because 3,000 acorns is a solid chunk. That's a solid chunk of acorns to be spending on something. That's about a third of an eclipse, right? If you wanted to save up for eclipse, it's about a third of what you'd spend on that. So you probably do better saving for eclipse first, and then after that you could probably go for a legendary pilot. So you can see for me, I'm in tier 6. I'm not worrying about legendary pilots right now. In terms of epic pilots though, the epic pilots are a little bit different, and those are a little bit iffy, because the thing is that technically speaking, you're better off if you skip the epic pilots entirely and you just go straight for a legendary, because the legendaries are just better, right? There's no aspect of a legendary pilot that isn't better than an epic pilot. But then the problem with that is that it costs 3 times as much. And do you really want to be running around with rare pilots or even no pilots on some of your mechs, perhaps, waiting to be able to then buy legendaries so that you can save a couple thousand acorns on epics? And I would say that's not the case. I would say for most people, it's probably a good idea to fill out your hangar with epic pilots. So like I did here, right? I have 2 that are rare, and I'm not going to bother replacing them. I mean, I can't get the epic assault pilot. You can't buy it with acorns even if you wanted to. So that's one thing. But I could buy the epic missile pilot, and I probably will at some point, but I don't really care that much. I already have a rare. It's already rank 5. I don't care that much, so I'll just go with these epic ones. I've had some of these for a while. I bought Impulse, the Barrage pilot, really early on, and it was really helpful, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best idea. G-Lock you can get for free with the promo code Summer Pilots, I believe. And so you should not have to buy this at all. By the time you're watching this, that promo code may or may not have expired. So if it has and you can't use that anymore, then yes, this is one that you're going to want to get. Probably the first one you're going to want to get. And then after that, maybe a Barrage just to fill the gap here, right? Because I got the missiles covered with my rare pilot here. There's no rare pilot for Barrage, so I'd have to jump straight to Epic. And essentially get the ones that you need so that your entire hangar is filled with pilots, but don't get any of like the really bad ones. Like don't get artillery pilots, don't get beam pilots probably. At some point you might use like Graviton Beam, which is a good weapon. That's a good beam weapon. That's not till like the end of tier 6 is probably when you're going to be using that for the most part. So you don't really need to prioritize beam pilots. You could get one, but I wouldn't prioritize it. And so yeah, so you start off, you get rare pilots, you move into tiers 3, tiers 4, you keep going with rare pilots. I would say after you get to tier 5, after you buy Aegis, because Aegis is way better than any pilot you could get, realistically speaking, once you first move into tier 5. This is just a crazy mech to get. After you have that, then I would say you're clear to buy 1 or 2 epic pilots, and you're good to go with that. And I would not buy any legendaries until you have at least one of these 2 mechs in tier 7. And then in terms of upgrading them, you might notice all of my pilots are rank 5. That is on purpose. That is partially because I don't want to have anything that's like super crazy strong on this account. But another reason is that, especially the rare pilots, getting them past ranks 5 is just straight up not worth it. The amount of buff that I get, let's assume I'm going to max, right? I would get a 8% buff, let's be generous here, 8% buff and a 12% damage buff. 8% HP, 12% damage. For 5,000 pilot marks, which is a freak ton, dude. That's a lot. And you might think, well, that's worth it because I'll get 8% HP and I'll get 12% damage. No, it's not worth it. For 5,000, for less than 5,000 pilot marks, you could get an epic pilot from rank 1 to rank 5. And a rank 5 pilot gets you 13% HP, 30% damage. Significantly more cost effective. So essentially what I'm saying is these low tier pilots, they're less cost effective just in general. Now, you know, getting them from rank 4 to rank 5 is still pretty cheap. It's only 1,500 pilot marks, which is not too bad. So that's okay if you want to do that. Even that's a little bit of a stretch even, but it's okay if you want to do that. I absolutely would not get them past rank 5 though. But even these rank 5 pilots are like not that bad. I would say that you're going to start feeling them being particularly weak. Like at this stage of the game, these pilots feel perfectly fine to me. I don't notice any performance drop. The biggest performance drop I notice is when using an unspecialized pilot, an artillery pilot on my sniper weapons. But even then I'm using it on Orion, so it doesn't really matter. So I would say when you start to really feel it is when you're like 5 to 6,000 SP is probably around the point where you're going to really want to make sure that you're swapping from rare pilots to epic pilots at very least. Up until that point, you could be using pretty much a full hanger of just rare pilots and you'd be pretty much fine. In terms of epic pilots, these you could max out if you wanted to. It's, 7,000 pilot marks. Yeah, to get from rank 5 to rank 6, which would then get you to max. It ends up being like 12% HP and about 20% damage. Not the highest amount, and it is rather costly, but, you know, I would say epic pilots don't really fall off until you're like 10 to 12,000 squad power, which for most people takes like a freaking really long time. Like, it takes a long time to get to that squad power range, so for most people, you're perfectly fine. You could get legendary ones, of course, and you could get those and they'd be better. Whatever epic pilot you buy, you're probably going to end up buying a legendary version of that pilot later down the road anyway, right? So buying the legendary sooner rather than later means that you keep yourself from spending the 1,000 or so acorns that it took to buy the epic. You just kind of skip the middleman. But in this case, the middleman can be pretty effective for a pretty long time, so it's not a bad idea. And then after that, or whenever you just kind of feel like you're ready, is when you move from the epics into the legendary pilots. Again, probably not until after you've gotten at least one of these. And then you can move into the legendary pilots, and then you can start upgrading those and focusing on those. Once again, I would prioritize close quarters pilots first, and then missile pilots. I would strictly avoid artillery. I would probably avoid beam pilots as well. If you really want to use graviton beam on something, then an epic pilot should do fine. But for the most part, you're just going to kind of fill it out based on like what weapons you have, right? Like generally, I would say that assault pilots aren't really good ones to go for because there aren't a lot of great assault weapons. But it's at this stage of the game where Viper works really good, and I happen to be using Viper and I happen to like it. So I just happen to rank up my rare assault pilot. And so it just kind of depends on what you happen to be using. But yeah, just keep in mind, don't over upgrade certain things. Like I could be ranking up my impulse to rank 6. I don't think it's really worth it. It would take pretty much all of my pilot marks to do so, which is 7,000. And you might end up with a lot of pilot marks and you think, well, you know, I have this many, I may as well use it, right? It takes 14,000 pilot marks to upgrade, to max out a legendary pilot, to get a legendary pilot from rank 1 to rank 6. The last rank of a legendary pilot alone is 10,000. So you might have a stupid amount, but you need a stupid amount. And that is the reason that you should not be spending them willy-nilly or just upgrading whatever just because you can. Alright, and just to kind of prove a point here, I'm on my main account, which has all of the legendary pilots maxed out. As you can see, my rare pilots, rank 4. Some of them are rank 5, but I kept them at rank 4, because that's just where it was most cost effective. So, I mean, some of my epic pilots, rank 5. Most of my rare pilots are rank 4, rank 5. They become useless. Like, as soon as you get a full hanger of epics, you're just not going to go back to rare for any reason. There's no point. And same thing with legendary, you're just not going to go back after that. So, you know, spending the least amount on those possible is obviously better. But then also, like, when you first get a pilot, it starts at rank 1 and you can't even use it very effectively. Partially because of the buff that it gives, but also partially because of the implants. Like, let's say I'm using like a level 6 implant on this rank 4 pilot. It only operates at level 4. So the implant is giving me 20% when it's supposed to be 30% because I have it maxed out. But it's giving me 20% because the level matches the pilot rank. So I don't get to use the full benefit of this implant until I get this pilot to rank 6 in this case. But that's just to kind of show, like, you know, if you're using implants, if you have specific implants that you're using, having a rank 1 pilot's pretty garbage because then you're only able to use level 1 implants essentially. And you'd have to get it to like maybe rank 3 at least to see any like actual decent benefit from it. And so yes, that is just kind of everything that I think about, everything that I consider when I'm thinking about different pilots, when I'm thinking about buying new pilots. Hopefully it made sense to everybody. Like, I feel like I explained it to the best of my ability, but once again, it's not like a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Everybody's going to want to do their pilots a little bit differently, probably. And it also kind of depends on, you know, your specific weapon situation and stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. I will have a video that is dedicated specifically to implants. I have been working on it for a very long time. Pilots is kind of guesswork, I'm not gonna lie, but for implants, it's a lot more technical. And I'll get into the details of that some other time. But otherwise, hopefully this was able to help you. And if it was, let me know. Otherwise, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.